What is going on, guys? PaPaSea back from the video for you guys, and today I'll bring you the New York Klinks draft analysis for Season 4 of the NPA. Finally, it is here. Season 4, a chance of redemption, because as you guys know, Season 3 didn't really go that well. I mean, we did go like 4-8, but we did have like a positive differential, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But yeah, going into this draft, let's get right into it. I'm going to be pretty in-depth and analytical in this draft, so it might be like a longer video. That's kind of how I want to structure my NPA team builder, stuff like that, kind of reminiscent to what TTM Jolt does, because he does a fantastic job of like explaining his picks and why he chose certain Pokemon and why he built certain sets. But anyway, to briefly explain what this is, in case you guys have no idea what a draft league is, I'll put more information in the description if I remember. But basically, there's 24 coaches in the NPA. We each draft Pokemon. If one coach drafts a Pokemon, no other team can draft that Pokemon. So hypothetically, if I draft Latios, nobody else can have Latios. There's other rules and regulations where you can't just draft any Pokemon you want. You have to draft specific Pokemon of specific tiers. I'm sure most of you guys know about that. If you don't know, I'll put some more stuff in the description. So, going to this draft, before I knew what pick I had, before I knew pretty much what was going on, some Pokemon I was looking at, the Pokemon I always look at in a Gen 7 league, Tapu Koko. I would love to draft Tapu Koko. I was also looking at things like Landorus Therian. I feel like Landorus Therian is just a very, very safe pick for a draft league. The unfortunate things about those two Pokemon is that they tend to go like top 5 in a draft league because they're arguably top 5 Pokemon in draft format. So I knew I pretty much had no chance of getting those if I had anything outside of like the top 10. And even if I had like the 8th or 9th or 10th pick, I would have to get pretty lucky for Landorus to fall or even Tapu Koko to fall. We ended up getting the 20th pick, which was a little bit unfortunate because I couldn't get, some of the things that I wanted, but I wanted to take advantage of that and draft things that I thought would fall to 20, if that makes sense. So going to the draft, I was looking at things like Tapu Fini, Tornadus Therian, and Garchomp. I wanted 2 of those 3. Those are 3 Pokemon I really, really like. They're Pokemon that I think can, they're Pokemon that I feel like can be built around a lot of teams. That's another thing I really wanted to do going into this draft. I wanted to make sure that my team wasn't just screwed over by snipes. I feel like last season I got sniped a lot in the first round and I kind of panic picked Jirachi, which isn't a bad Pokemon, but you look at my team last season, I had like Jirachi, Megazim, I had so many overlapping types, I got sniped a lot, and I feel like one of the reasons why I got sniped a lot was because before the draft, I planned out everything I wanted to take. My tier 1, my tier 2, my Mega, my free picks, everything was predetermined and planned out. However, once you get sniped, it's really hard to work around that. So going into this draft, I really didn't plan too far ahead, and I didn't plan out my full draft until after a couple of rounds in. Now, with that in mind, like I said, going to the draft, I was looking at things like Garchomp, potentially Mega Garchomp even, Tapu Fini, Tornadus Therian. Thought about going for Mega Heracross because it was tier 3, going for Sticky Webs. I had a lot of ideas, but going into the early round of the draft, I wanted things that were essentially snipe-proof that would fit with a lot of teams. So, looking over the team, and you can see the whole team if you want. Normally what I do with these draft analysis is I don't show the whole team until the end, but I feel like I'm going to be bouncing around a lot to show the whole team. So, first pick, I took Tapu Fini. It fell to 20, which I was very, very happy about. I think last season it went in like the top 5 because it's a new Pokemon. You guys know what Tapu Fini does. It's a fairy type, it's a water type, bulky Pokemon, very reliable. Another interesting thing about the NPA is that Z moves are essentially unrestricted. What that means is any Pokemon can use a Z Crystal, any Z move outside of Z moves that boost every single stat, like Z Celebrator, Z Trick or Treat, and stuff like that. So with that in mind, that's another important thing I kept in mind with this draft, that you could just abuse the hell out of Z Crystals, and that's what I wanted to do. So I wanted to abuse Z Crystals, go with the flow, and make sure I didn't have overlapping types, which is, very base things for a draft league, but I don't really do that a lot. So Tapu Fini, you know what it does. Nothing really too crazy. Unfortunate thing about it though, weak to electric. And my next pick is also weak to electric, weak to ice. One thing that tends to happen a lot with my drafts, especially in Season 3 of the GBA D League, is I am very Bolt Beam weak. I think GBA D League Season 3 was my most Bolt Beam vulnerable draft I've ever done. And it was a pretty big problem because I had things like Serena to help against my ice weakness, or to help against my electric weakness, but then Serena was weak to ice, so it couldn't cover my ground type Pokemon, and it just was a mess. So with my first 2 picks, I was already figured, you know what, I might be falling down to that mistake. Just talking about Tornadus really quick though, you know what it does. Flying type regenerator with U-turn, very, very good. Access to Taunt. My first 2 picks have Taunt, which is very, very good because Taunt is a great move to have. I want to have a team that has a lot of different options for different things, and right about having 2 Taunt users is very good. Can be physical, can be special, and you guys know how amazing this thing is with Z moves, especially when they're unlimited. So, seeing as my first 2 picks are Bolt Beam weak, I figured let's pick something that's not Bolt Beam weak, and that is Goodra, aka Figment. The nicknames are there, by the way. Now, Gudra, one of my favorite dragon types. It is a mono dragon, which is great. It also has Sap Sipper, so it can cover the grass weakness of Tapu Fini even better, which I like a lot. It is resistant to electric, which helps a lot, and it fits the team a lot. So right off the bat, I have my dragon, I have my fairy, I have my dragon. Going into drafts too, I feel like the Fairy Dragon Steel Core is a little bit overrated as to how important it is, but I do still think it is important, if that makes sense. So going to the draft, I wanted to emphasize the Fairy Dragon Steel, and I also wanted to get other types that people don't necessarily realize are that important. Those types are Flying, Fighting, and Poison. All offensively very, very good. I feel like those typings people kind of don't really pay as much attention to as Fairy Dragon Steel. As you can see, I already got my Flying type Tornadus. So here, I wanted the Steel type. I wanted a good Steel type. It had to be a lower tier. I couldn't really afford things like Skarmory, like X-Steel's not really the best example because I wanted a defensive type. But I went with Drasil here, the Fortress. It's Bug Steel. It's 4 times weak to Fire, but I have 2 resists, so it's really not that big of a deal. It's also a Pokemon that resists Ice, and it also resists Electric, which is very, very good. It also resists Fairy for Gudra, which is very, very nice. That's another thing with the team, like I said. I just want to have a team that covers itself as best as possibly can. This thing is also a Spike Setter, a Stealth Rocker, and a Hazard Set, or a Hazard Rapid Spinner, that's what I'm looking for. Now, Spike stacking, hazard stacking is pretty important because if you look at my team as a whole, one thing that it lacks is just pure, raw, wall-breaking power, and I feel like being able to set up spikes, toxic spikes, stealth rocks will help a lot with that. Also gets Rapid Spin. I know that everything gets Defog in this generation, but I still think Rapid Spin is infinitely better than Defog because you don't have to get rid of your own hazards to do it, which I really, really like. Yes, I do have 2 Defoggers at this point as well, in Finny and Torn, but I really wanted that Rapid Spinner as well as another hazard removal that I think is more reliable. So, first 4 picks in the draft, I pretty much did everything that I wanted. I have the Steel type, have the Fairy Dragon Steel, I have hazard removal, I have hazard setting, I have Volturn, I guess, with Fortress and Tornadus Therian. All Pokemon that I really like that I feel comfortable with. So, my next pick, I wanted another Stealth Rocker for sure. I didn't want Fortress to be my only Stealth Rocker, because then I'll be forced to bring Stealth Rocks on Fortress every week, and it just wouldn't be the best thing. So, I decided to go with Miltank here. I dove into my Tier 4 a little bit early here. I feel like Miltank is one of the better Tier 4s. It also gets Thick Fat, which helps with the Ice weakness a little bit more, because Gudra's weak to Ice, of course. This thing is weak to Ice. It also gets Scrappy and Sap Sipper, as you know. Sap Sipper helps again with Finn. That's 2 Sap Sipper Mons. Stealth Rockmon, it's bulky, it's also a normal type, which is cool because I don't have normal type yet. You guys know what Miltank does. It's pretty fast too, base 100, like you'd be surprised. It can be offensive, it can be defensive. I've used Miltank in the past. It's a great Pokemon. Next up, I wanted another Stealth Rocker because I just wanted this team to have as many options as possible. And I feel like 3 Stealth Rockers is good. That's enough options. I decided to go with Swampert. Now, this is my only repeating type on the team. I have 2 water types now. However, this is also a ground type that is not weak to ice. I know it kind of sounds like kind of a weird thing to want, but I really wanted a ground type that wasn't weak to ice, just so my team wasn't so Bolt Beam weak. You look at my team as of now, and things that are weak to Bolt Beam are just the first 3 picks, while the other 3 picks cover Bolt Beam pretty nicely. Also gets Stealth Rocks, like I said. It does repeat the water type, however, its only shared weakness with Tapu Fini is grass, and I have 3 resists and 2 Sap Sippers, so the grass weakness really isn't that great. Swampert also gets Roar, which I think is really, really good. Swampert I think is a little bit of an underrated Pokemon too. In the past, I remember saying in the NPA server actually how I did understand why Swampert was tier 3 while Seismitoad was tier 4 because I thought Seismitoad was a better Pokemon. I was actually thinking about drafting Seismitoad because of that being in lower tier, but then I ended up getting sniped, so I just went with this because I figured it did everything it needed to do. And then it was actually Greg who was saying, like, you know, Swampert's actually really good, it's better offensively, it gets Roar. So I actually ended up drafting Swampert in a Pokemon Draft League tournament that was hosted by Johnny GB, I think it was called the Brawl for All Season 4, and it was very good for me, setting up rocks, clicking Roar, things try to sit up on it, you just click Roar. So far, I have a lot of things that I want on this draft. I really wanted to get some more Volturn on this team too. This team doesn't have that much Volturn, however, I definitely wanted a fast Electric type because that just pairs very, very well with Tornadus. So, I went with Raichu. Raichu was tier 4, which I had mixed feelings about because Raichu is normally tier 5. But at the same time, knowing the fact that any Mon can use Z-Crystals, and Raichu is a fantastic Z-Crystal user, I figured it really wasn't the worst thing in tier 4. Another thing I have to mention real quick is the way how Megas work, too. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. But your Mega, if you drafted a Tier 1 Mega, Mega Mawile, Mega Medicham, Mega Lopunny, Mega Charizard X, stuff like that, you actually have to pay 40 extra points. So going to the draft, I knew I was drafting a Tier 1 Mega, unless Mega Mawile somehow fell to 20th, I wasn't drafting a Tier 1 Mega. Tier 2, you didn't have to spend any points, which was fine. And then Tier 3, you got extra points, and Tier 4, you got extra points. There was Tier 4 Megas too, but Tier 4 Megas were like Camera Up, Obama Bonnet. So I was strongly looking at Mega Heracross, like I think I said earlier. However, Kelly ended up sniping that. I was looking at Mega Heracross Webs with Galvantula, but ended up getting sniped, and I ended up realizing, like, the thing with that team is, had I gone for Mega Heracross Webs, I feel like my team would have been too reliant on that. So it kind of worked out that I didn't get that. But anyway, like I said, even though I did technically get sniped, I built my draft in a way where I could recover from that. So again, Raichu, you know what it does. Fast, Electric type, Volt Switch. Also, another important thing, Lightning Rod. I wanted another electric immunity that wasn't a ground type, and we got Lightning Rod on this thing, so why not? So, next up, I'm looking at Tier 4, and I'm thinking, like, let's see, I really want to cover my types. I don't have a Fire type yet. Fire types are very good for a lot of reasons. You can hit things like Ferrothorn, you can hit things like Registeel, you can hit things like Metagross, Mega Mawile, which was legal this draft. So I'm looking at Tier 4, I'm thinking, you know, Typhlosion's pretty good. I could go with Delphox, which of course is what I ended up going with. I was hesitant to go for Delphox because at this time, I was considering drafting Kadabra in Tier 5. Kadabra in Tier 5 really isn't that bad. It has, I believe, 105 speed and 120 special attack, or maybe it's vice versa, one of the two, which really isn't that bad, especially for a Tier 5 Pokemon. It gets a lot of the same moves as Alakazam, and it's a very good Pokemon. However, if I drafted that, then my types would have been out of whack. I would have had to forego a Poison type or forego a Fire type, so I figured, you know what, let's go Delphox. It's Fire and Psychic. It's decently fast at 104, pretty strong at 114. With the Z Crystals too, this thing is very, very good. You have a lot of good coverage options. This thing is probably going to be my Zmon. If my opponents are watching this is probably going to be my Zmon most of the time. Probably shouldn't say that. But this thing gets so many good things. And that's really all I wanted it for. Just a new, kind of reminiscent of Gengar. When I had that in the WPE, which was the World Pokemon Entertainment, not to confuse with the WBE. I had Gengar as my Z-Crystal user, and Gengar was so good in the sense of you just slapped a Z-Crystal on it, and it just clicked buttons and just did damage. And I feel like Delphox can do a very, very similar thing. Not as good as Gengar, because of course Gengar is a Tier 2/Tier 1 Pokemon, while this thing is a solid Tier 4, so it's not as good as Gengar. I'm not saying it's as good as Gengar, but for what I wanted to do, it'll be reminiscent of Gengar, if that makes sense. So again, going to this draft and looking at the team, and I'm like, okay, I have a lot of the things that I want. I really want a Fighting type. I love Fighting types. Probably my favorite type out there. I feel like Fighting type is a very good type. If you look at things in the past, or drafts I've had in the past, especially in the GBA D-League Season 3, because I had to face Mega Snorlax twice, because the first time I had to face it, the person ended up training it, somebody ended up battling later in the season, so I had to battle Snorlax twice. And both times, I was like, man, I have no answers to Snorlax. Luckily, I think both times I didn't bring Snorlax, that was good for me, but I wanted that Fighting type, so that way I didn't just lose to Snorlax. I also realized at this point, too, because I was looking at mono Fighting types. I was looking at Simian, which I think would be kind of cool. Unfortunately, doesn't get Defiant yet, but if it got Defiant, that would have been amazing. I was looking at Hariyama, which I've used in the past, which is fantastic. I was looking at Primate, which gets Defiant. Defiant was also an ability that I really wanted on this draft, but I just couldn't end up working out because, you know, there's only so many things you can draft, especially in a league as big as the NPA. It's very, very hard to get everything. And you actually have a list here of things that I'm missing that I wish I had that I'll go over after the draft. But I also wanted the Poison type, like I said. Now, Poison type offensively is fantastic. Fairy types are so freaking good. Z moves are unrestricted. Toxicroak is another pretty good Z-Crystal Mon. It also gets Dry Skin, which makes it immune to water, which I guess helps with Megonical a little bit because it's a fire type. That's my only watery Pokemon, but still, having another immunity is good. It makes it weak to fire, but that's whatever. Poison Touch, Poison Jab is kind of funny too because you can poison like 50% of the time or something crazy like that with Poison Jab. But like I said, this thing's just a nuke. Another potential Z-Crystal holder because it gets good physical attacks, good special attack. It doesn't have the best speed, but with Z-moves being unrestricted, I could run things like Z Sunny Day or Z Rain Dance, whatever I prefer. And this thing is pretty much just my bulky killer, if that makes sense. Bulky normal types, Blissey, Chansey, Snorlax, you probably die to a Z fighting move. This thing can also hit fairy types, Florges, Sylveon, Z Gunk Shot, no problem. I noticed my team at this point kind of struggled against bulky fairies because I really couldn't hit them that hard super effective. Now we have a poison type. We hit them super effective. Fantastic. So, at this point, I realized I drafted 3 ground weaknesses in a row, so it will be really cool to get another ground immunity, whether it's a flying type or a levitator. The problem with getting a flying type is that would be another bolting weakness most likely, because most flying types are, you know, weak to electric and ice unless they have a dual typing. I was looking at grass types as well, because I wanted a grass type. I was looking at ghost types. Basically, I had 2 picks left. One of them had to be Omega, and there was a lot of different things that I wanted. So I ended up going with Trevenant here. Now, Trevenant was tier 5, which I thought was great. Gorgeous was tier 4, otherwise I probably would have went with Gorgeous. It's tier 5. This thing is a ground resistant, not a ground immunity, so that's still good. It's also a ghost type, which is nice. I didn't have a ghost type this time as I hit my mic there. You know, obviously it helps with Miltank over here because it's immune to fighting. It also helps with just being a grass type. You know, I got a Fire, Water, Grass core, I guess. Trevenant's really not a bad Pokemon. It's a Pokemon I've never really used before, but it has 110 attack. Like, it has okay bulk. Slimy, who's in my front office, is a really big fan of Trevenant, and I feel like something that could be pretty good. It also gets Leechy, which is very nice. And it's really just there for the typing, honestly, if I'm being completely honest. I don't really expect it to do that much, but I expect it to sort of patch some holes with some team building things. Like, let's say I bring a team that my opponent has, again, things like Snorlax that are very threatening. Trevenant's other Pokemon that can help against that. So, I don't know why I'm so scared of Snorlax, but I am. Next up, had to pick my Mega. At this point, I had 0 free points left, meaning I could not draft a tier 1 Mega. I believe at this point, the only tier 1 Megas left were, honestly, I don't even remember. But I just really could not justify paying an extra 40 points to draft a tier 1 Mega. I just did not seem worth it. Especially when there were things like Mega Heracross in tier 3, Mega Sableye in tier 2, Mega Houndoom, Mega Absol in tier 2, even Mega Banette I was looking at before I drafted the Ghost type. So I ended up going with Montreal, the Absol, named after the Montreal Hapsils, goes by Aster J, because he named his Sylvia after me, so I figured let's name a Pokemon after him. So at this point of the draft, or earlier in the draft, I want to say around the McGonagall pick, I was considering drafting Mega Houndoom. Mega Houndoom, I think, is a great Pokemon. I know Kelly loves it. Fire, Dark, offensively, very, very good. However, I realized at this point, I had a lot of special attackers. I really just wanted a physical attacker, so I didn't want to go with Houndoom because it's a special attacker. And also, like, let's say I had gone with Houndoom, then I wouldn't have drafted McGonagall, and I would have drafted a psychic type like Kadabra, and then I would have 20 points left over to spend, which I feel like kind of would have been wasted, and those 20 points wouldn't have been enough to get a tier 1, so I figured this was the best course of action because it also gave me a physical attacker. This is pretty much the closest thing I have to a wall breaker as well, because most of the attack is no joke. Also, it's a magic bounce, which is very, very nice, and it's a dark type. Offensively, dark types are very, very good. It's like double immune to Prankster, sort of, because it's dark type and has magic bounce, which is kind of funny. And it also has 115 special attack, which is no joke. This is another Pokemon I had in NPA Season 2, where I made the finals, and Mega Absol was so good for me. I don't think it's necessarily good enough to be a tier 1 Mega, but considering the fact that you have to pay for tier 1 Megas and this thing was in tier 2, I figured it was kind of a no-brainer to go for this or Houndoom, and I went with this for the reason that I mentioned before. So, going over the full team, like, I don't have any repeating types, which is a check. Going over my checklist here, actually. I made a checklist. We got a grass immunity. We got Goodra. Great. We got ground immunity. Flying type. We have thick fat. I don't know why I wanted thick fat, but I did. We got Miltank. We have hazards. You know, we have 3 hazard setters. We have a Spiker. We have Defoggers and a Rapid Spinner. We have a ground type not weak to ice, which is what I wanted. We have an extra electric immunity on top of the ground type in Raichu. We have a grounded poison type, so that way I'm not immune to, that way I'm not weak to Toxic Spikes, although I do have Tapu Fini. Another reason about Tapu Fini that I really wanted it was because of the terrain. That way I don't have to get screwed by Skull Burns as much, and I don't have to worry about getting status as much, which makes it even harder for teams to break my walls. Because you look at my team, right? I don't have too many just things that can just recover a lot outside of, like, Miltank and Trevenant, if that counts. And having Tapu Fini say that you can't Toxic my Goodra, can't Toxic my Will Smith, that's pretty good. Going on, I have a Dark type in Mega Absol. I have priority too. You know, Absol has priority. This thing has some decent priority. Even Raichu has decent priority, surprisingly. I have Volturn. I have Trick, Trevenant, and this thing get Trick, which is pretty freaking cool. I have Magic Bounce in my Mega. I have Justified. I wanted Justified for a weird reason. It's not really as relevant with this draft as it was in, like, earlier iterations of my draft plans. But since I have 2 Dark weaknesses, I guess, it's cool to switch in Absol pre-Mega, get the Justified boost, and then Mega. Now, you do have to Mega first turn, but it's still cool to have, I guess. Got that Water immunity, got that Fighting immunity, / Resist, I guess, because, you know, this thing's immune, and then I have a Resist somewhere. Then I have Anti-Scald stuff. That was very important. I feel like in the past, like, I know a lot of people complain about hacks, and I know people I see people complain about hacks that get a lot of hacks. And I feel like, you know, NPA Season 2, when there was like 2 or 3 games that were literally decided off of a Scald Burn or a crit, I figured it would be good to have anti-Scald stuff, which I do have in Topanga and the water-absorbing Toxicroak. A lot of good Z users. That was very important as well. If you look at my team, Finny, Tornadus, Raichu, Delphox, and Toxicroak, that's 5 Pokemon. Those are all very good Z users in my opinion. Now, what am I missing? I'm missing Flashfire. Flashfire would have been cool. It would have been nice to cover Trevenant a little bit, I guess. It would have been nice to cover Drasil as well. However, there's just no way for me to get Flashfire unless I drafted Mega Houndoom, and I couldn't really draft Mega Houndoom. Mold Breaker would have been nice. Going back to my fighting type, I was looking at drafting Sawk in Tier 5, which I thought was a steal. I thought this in Tier 4 was kind of a steal too. I thought this thing should be Tier 3. But anyway, Sawk in Tier 5 with Mold Breaker would have been cool, but then I would have lost it on the Poison typing or the Grass typing, which wouldn't have been that great. Do I have Intimidate? But then again, there's really not that many Intimidate Pokemon. There's really not that many good Intimidate users. Especially in the 24-person league, it's hard to get one of the few good Intimidate users. I also don't have a Rock type or an Ice type, which I feel like are the most expendable types in drafts. I mean, Rock would have been nice because, you know, it's a nice bird immunity, so you don't just get spammed by Brave Bird or spammed by Whirlwind, although I do have one of the best birds in the game. But I feel like Rock's just the most expendable type of draft. I don't have an Ice type as well, which isn't as expendable as Rock, but considering you look at my team, like, considering the fact that Ice is only good from an offensive standpoint, while Rock is good from offensive and defensive standpoint, and Z Crystals are unlimited, and anything just runs Z Ice Beam, I don't think having an Ice type is that bad, and I'm missing out on Defiant, like I mentioned earlier. Defiant would have been very cool, because then my team would have just said no to, like, any hazard removal at all, because I had a Spin Blocker and a Defiant user, but unfortunately, I didn't get it. I feel like out of the things that I'm missing, like, the things that I'm missing aren't as important as things that I have, if that makes sense. Like, my team covers itself pretty well. I think, like, even though I am missing just straight, pure, raw power, like I don't have things like Emboar, I don't have things like Hoopa Unbound, things that I've had in draft leagues in the past, but I feel like my team is strong enough, especially considering the fact that Z-moves are unlimited. That's really my main focus of this draft, is just abusing the fact that Z-Crystals are unlimited. Last season, my whole gimmick was trying to abuse Baton Pass. That didn't really work out too well, because I didn't have many Pokemon to Baton Pass to. This season though, Z-Crystals, boom. Let's get it. Let's not miss playoffs this time. Let's at least make playoffs. Week 1 is going up, I believe, next week. I'm not really sure. That's it for today. Let me know what you guys think of the team in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep rooting for your Klinks. I'm actually wearing a Nick switch. I just realized that. Didn't plan that. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day. I will see you guys next time. And bye-bye.